Hello, Cavalier fans, and welcome to another edition of Cavalier Conversations. As you can see today, we are honored to have the leader of the Cabrini Athletic Department, Director of Athletics and Recreation, Brad Koch, joining us. Hi, Brad. How are you today?
Good, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining us. We'll start right from the beginning of you coming to Cabrini. You spent 15 years at Philadelphia University in a variety of positions. What made you come to Cabrini?
Yeah, you know what, Dave, as you said, after serving in various capacities within that Department of Athletics and Recreation at Philadelphia University, now Jefferson University, for close to 15 years, I felt that I was ready to become a director of athletics. And it began really at that point exploring opportunities throughout the region. In the summer of 2012, when this position opened, I was confident it would be a great fit for myself and the university. I was aware certainly of the success of many of the success throughout the athletic programs and the overall mission ideology of the institution, and was eager and enthusiastic about applying my experience and vision in both of those areas in very productive and positive ways.
Okay. So you've been here for a little over 8 years. We're in your 9th year now. Have any of those initial impressions of the university changed? And are those things that made it, that made you interested in the job still what makes this place special?
Absolutely. It hasn't changed at all, Dave. For me, it's been our community. Students, coaches, faculty, staff, alumni. There are so many great things that I've had the pleasure to be a part of in my close to 9 years here. From new programs, enhancements to our campus infrastructure, community outreach, service, all of which have been led by creative thinkers and individuals that live and breathe the Cabrini mission every day. The success in athletics and within our teams has been icing on the cake.
Well, one of the things that I think people love about being here, especially within this athletic department, is the sense of family that we have. Our coaches and staff seem to be more than friends and co-workers, and I think our student athletes can sense that. You've had a big part in creating that, and how have you done that?
Well, I think it's important to be flexible, Dave. It's easy to say family first, but you need to commit to it and make sure coaches and staff can meet the demands of this field and still raise their families and contribute at home. That is one of the key areas on why we've retained such a talented group of individuals over the years. And it's also very important for our student athletes to see our commitment to work and family, and that it is possible, and that they can follow a similar path if they chose to. Beyond that, collaboration and constant dialogue are paramount to building community within athletics. As you know, Dave, we meet as a group often, sometimes outside of work. And our pursuits to construct a great experience for our student athletes is a shared goal. And the results that we see together is one of the many fun and rewarding aspects of being in this position and in this profession.
So you were a basketball player in your undergrad days at Sales, and your dad was a longtime basketball coach. How do you think those experiences have influenced how you do your job as an athletic director and how you interact with student athletes and coaches?
Significantly. It's been advantageous for sure, Dave. While being a student athlete, you don't always think about what happens behind the scenes. But I knew early on, whether it was my playing career and through my various curriculum and course load at Allentown College, now DeSales University, that I wanted to learn what the behind the scenes entailed. My father is a retired coach and teacher of close to 30 years. So my siblings and I grew up playing every sport imaginable. And I emulated and admired my dad as a coach and learned from him. But I felt my path was geared more towards administrative leadership.
So earlier you talked about when you came to Cabrini, you knew about this sort of tradition of athletic success that the university had. But in your 8 years, this department has reached unprecedented heights. 15 conference all-sports trophies, 50 conference championships, countless All-American, all-conference and academic awards, and the university's first team national championship with men's lacrosse in 2019. How have you and the department been able to achieve such a level of success over the last 8 years?
Well, from day one, Dave, I had a plan. During my interview here, I presented a 5 to 10 year plan to the search committee on how to advance areas of need throughout athletics and recreation. So I did some research. I talked to individuals that were very familiar with Cabrini and what was transpiring within athletics and recreation. Now, I often say for those that are aspiring to be ADs that you need to have the ability to problem solve and have a vision for not only each program, but for the department as a whole. It has to be strategic and coincide with goals and aspirations of staff and each head coach. I often assess and evaluate each area throughout our department, collect important data and benchmarks, and press forward. This department has grown significantly during my time here, from personnel, intercollegiate sports, resources, and facilities. I firmly believe to get there, we can never become idle. We have to, there's always room to be progressive and enrich our ability to attract student athletes at Cabrini and accommodate their interests while they're here. You know, we have the finest coaches and staff in the country, and I aim to complement their efforts for continued excellence.
So I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about a couple of the more recent issues that have affected Cabrini athletics and college athletics in general. In March, you had to make what I would assume is one of the toughest announcements you've ever had to make, and that was to cancel the spring seasons. Then we had to do the same thing for the fall sports last month. What was that process like for you as an administrator?
Very difficult, Dave. By far, the last 7 months have been the most challenging of my career. A sentiment shared by all of us. We all feel terrible for our fall sports student athletes, as we did for those that lost their seasons last spring. While difficult to make, we felt it was the right one to protect the university community and our families. And that decision certainly was not made overnight. Much dialogue occurred, and we explored every possible scenario before those cancellations. We have committed to ensuring the health and safety of our student athletes, and in this environment, that pursuit could not be called into question. We're all hopeful and anticipating some level of competition in the spring for those fall sports student athletes.
Also over the summer, there was a Black at Cabrini Instagram page that was created and shared some disturbing stories and experiences from people of our community. How has this affected the athletic department?
Well, I look at that, Dave, as a very important beginning of healing, of action, of community. And we certainly recognize within athletics that we can and should do better, and we'll continue to listen. And activate sustainable plans that combat social injustice and racial tension. This department and university is committed to being agents of change, and each one of us will need to do their part and contribute.
So the push for social justice and the COVID-19 pandemic that we just talked about has certainly had an effect on the way we look at, or that we've traditionally looked at college athletics. What do you see of the future of college athletics in general and the Cabrini Athletic Department more specifically?
Well, I'll start with the first one, future of college athletics. That's a great question, Dave, and complicated to answer. What I can say is that Division III is the largest membership group of the NCAA, as we know. And we really need to band together now more than ever to provide the best educational experience for our student athletes, which is the essence of that Division III model. We will need to consistently challenge and assess how we can uphold that Division III philosophy and how we may need to approach and think differently about eligibility, championships, and student athlete well-being within that climate. For our department, I see further growth and opportunity for all programs. We have the right people in place to elevate our programs for success within the conference, in the region, and on a national scale. We will also add to our offerings when convenient. Again, part of that strategic plan that I alluded to earlier, with several new sports being discussed that have to make sense for Cabrini. I will continue to goal set with administration, with our coaches and staff, and make every effort to advance all areas of the student athlete experience and live up to our motto, best is the standard.
All right. So there's so many things that go across your desk, obviously. We've touched on a couple of them today. And I can only imagine the day-to-day stress that you have coming in every day. What do you do to get away from the job?
Well, I try to spend as much time as I can with my family. My wife, Kim, who is an English teacher in the Central Bucks School District, teaching 12th grade English at CB East. She's also an elected official serving as supervisor of our Whippine Township, along with my children. I have a son, Caleb, who's 11 years old, and a daughter, Rachel, who's 9, actually turns 9 this weekend. So as much as we can do as a family together, we try to do so. Certainly a release for all of us. But beyond that, I exercise often. I have never considered myself well-read, but I found a renewed interest in books since this pandemic began. Reading a book has served me well and has provided a good escape within all of this. I'm sure I'm not alone with that. Recently, I started reading Triumph by Jeremy Schaap, which is the untold story of Jesse Owens and Hitler's Olympics. I'm very much enjoying that right now.
So you're more fiction or nonfiction?
Nonfiction, especially, no surprise here, but, sports related.
Yeah.
I've really taken an interest in books written about sports that I may not have had a whole lot of, experience with growing up. I read recently Cinderella Man, Seabiscuit, Boys in the Boat prior to that, all kind of focused on that circa 1930s era surrounding Hitler's Olympics. I've really kind of gravitated towards that and enjoying hearing about these complicated stories of survival and overcoming challenges within their respective sports and the economic conditions that surrounded them. So I'm looking for more books within that kind of category, but I've really been able to enjoy and gain a further understanding of what really transpired there. And within my job, I'm trying to apply some of those lessons as much as I can to grow here professionally, but as a department.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. I know that you are extremely busy, and I appreciate it. Do you have any final comments that you'd like to make for our Cavalier fans?
Well, thank you, Dave. It's great to take the time today and do this with you. But really just to say for everyone to keep making good choices. I know this is challenging for all of us, but we need to look out for one another and to exercise empathy and patience for all those around us. If we can do that together, I believe we'll be able to see those blue and white uniforms back in action as soon as possible. And if I can ever be of assistance for any of our students or student athletes, please don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information can be found on the staff directory page on our athletics website.
All right. Thanks so much, Brad. Again, we appreciate it. Thank you, Cabrini fans, for tuning in with us today. And we'll see you soon. Stay tuned for the next edition of Cavalier Conversations. Go Cavs.
Go Cavs. Thanks, Dave.